You're tuned in to More Living with Jim Brogan, broadcast live from the Brogan Financial Studios at News Talk 98.7, where old-fashioned values, expert knowledge, and genuine understanding come together to give you the retirement straight talk you deserve. Jim's a former National Advisor of the Year recipient and a financial educator, and he's here today to talk about how you can live out the best years of your life. Jim and the Brogan Financial team have been helping retirees and pre-retirees across the Southeast for over 20 years in their pursuit of financial independence. You can reach them during the week at 865-862-6800. So sit back, relax, and get ready to learn, because More Living with Jim Brogan starts now.
Welcome to More Living here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. I'm Jim Brogan, and thank you for tuning in this morning. Knoxville, it's that time of year, late spring. Knoxville's listed always as one of the allergy capitals in the United States, and it seems everyone knows someone who is struggling this time of year. Now, I have to admit, normally, I've got Dr. Ty Prince with me today, and normally by this time of the year, Ty, I've usually had my issues myself. I hadn't had issues this year. Maybe it's because that sinus surgery I had last year.
It's hard to tell how much your chronic sinus infections are contributing to it until you get it fixed.
It's interesting. The yellow coating on your car signals the height of spring pollen. It's tree pollen. It's grasses, mold, ragweed. About 1/4 of adults experience seasonal allergies. So what can you do to relieve the symptoms? Our guest is our good friend of the show, Dr. Ty Prince. He is president of the Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology Center and is also the medical director of clinical trials at Allergy, Asthma, and Science Center. He's a Knoxville native. He's been practicing for over 30 years. He's a specialist in adult, adolescent, and pediatric allergy, asthma, and clinical immunology. He's also a cutting-edge researcher, and he has a new company, AccuClear AI, that is working on detecting and diagnosing allergies using artificial intelligence, and we're going to get into that a little bit later in the show. Good morning, Dr. Prince.
Thank you, Jim, for having me.
Great to have you with us. So, just real quickly, you've been in this field for over 30 years. Where did you first become interested in studying the treatment of allergies and asthma?
Well, I actually got interested with Dr. Bob Overholt, encouraged me to go on an interview while I was going on interviews for pulmonary critical care. And although I disagreed with him, I had enough respect for him to agree to do at least one interview. Then I fell in love.
That's awesome. Tell us what's going on this year in Knoxville, Tennessee. How bad are the allergies right now? What's in bloom right now? We've been seeing more haze in the air. Yeah. What's going on?
Obviously, tree pollen's the biggest, and then we have a moderate amount of grass pollen. The grass is starting to pollinate as well, too. But then always mold. But when we have these rains for several days in a row, we'll get a reprieve, but there'll be a rebound of both the tree pollen and the mold will rebound from that. Probably today and tomorrow we'll see a pretty big rebound of the pollen.
It's been interesting because April, we hadn't had a lot of rain like we normally do.
I know. And
then we gotten it here in the last couple of days.
It's great for to reduce allergies.
But then it comes roaring back?
That's right. You get a rebound with it.
Now, I love the breeze. I love to open up the house, open up the windows, have the breeze blow through, especially when it's in the 70s, it's not too hot. As a seasonal allergy sufferer, is that something I should avoid doing?
You probably should. Odds are there's going to be, if you're not allergic to tree pollen, you'll probably have some mold allergy or maybe grass allergy as well too. So best to keep your windows and doors closed and also in your car as well too, and use recycled air in your car if you are an allergy sufferer.
What about the filters in our home?
Yeah, there's a huge controversy on that. Where I trained, we did a lot of home testing, and we took homes and we put high-efficiency filters in there, check the room air samples, and then put allergy filters in there and check the room air samples. And the particulate levels were the same for each one of them. So the good filters are pleated filters. They have MERV, M-E-R-V ratings on them. Those are filtration ratings. You need at least a 12 to 14. That's a high-efficiency 3-month filter. And then if you want to run your energy bills up and maybe shut your system down occasionally, go for the 18 to 22. Those are the allergy filters. But you do not need to filter out dust mites and animal dander and animal allergens, because those are released with human interaction. So it makes no difference if you have a filter that filters those out. You're going to get exposure to those when you sit down on your couch and chairs and lie down in your bed. It's going to hit you before it hits the air system.
Yeah, and you've talked about that before on the filters, that we really don't want to get those super thick ones. You just said it's just going to run up our bills.
That's correct.
What else can we be doing in our house to keep our allergens down, especially this time of the year?
Well, if you know what your allergies are, this is where allergy testing comes through. And if you identify as having indoor allergies, dust mite's the most common, of course, and you got to get pillow and mattress covers for dust mite allergies, and keep your floors mopped is the best way instead of vacuumed, the hard surface floors. You pretty much, the only way you can keep your dust mite levels down for exposure, the main way is to get pillow and mattress covers. That's where your highest levels are.
On the filters, you mentioned 3-month filters.
Yes.
We don't need to change them every month?
No, I have a lot of patients that do that. I mean, if you have a really old house and there's a lot of particulates in there, like the popcorn ceilings and just a lot of old furniture and things like that, then yeah, you might have to change them. They might get clogged up, but it really doesn't help you to change them every month. People feel better about that. But if it is restricting your airflow, I mean, you can take it out and pull it out and look at it and see if it's got some light coming through it. And if it doesn't, yes, you can change them every month. But if you have to change a high-efficiency filter every month, you've got bigger problems than
okay, so really shouldn't have to do that.
No, you shouldn't have to do it at all.
Now, typically when we start feeling the allergies, I think most people, they reach for over-the-counter antihistamines. So are they safe to take every day? Which ones are the best?
There's a lot of controversy about that now, Jim. They're turning out, these are retrospective studies. They're not prospective studies, and they're correlation studies showing that there might be a correlation between dementia and not only the old-fashioned antihistamines, the Benadryls and the clotrimazepams, but also the non-sedating ones, the Claritin, Allegra, and Zyrtec. I don't think Allegra would be in that category because you get very little in the brain, but there might be a correlation between that and
really
dementia. Yeah.
So talk about the difference in between like how can we prevent the allergies from even offsetting or coming in? I mean, are you a big believer in nasal steroid sprays?
Well, your nasal steroid sprays are always the most effective, but you have to use them regularly. Always remember, if you have glaucoma, open-angle glaucoma, you can't use those steroid nasal sprays without permission from your doctor who knows your pressures, your eye pressures. But you get the most relief from regular use of the nasal steroids. If you use them sporadically, they don't work.
Is there something we should be taking every day in addition to that to kind of help stave off the allergies to begin with?
Well, obviously, if you take the medicines ahead of time before your exposure, it's going to work better. But your long-acting antihistamines, the Claritin, Allegra, Zyrtec, if you take those every day, in about 4 to 8 weeks, you're going to get tolerant to them. And that you either have to stop them for a few days or switch to another antihistamine, long-acting antihistamine.
And the steroid sprays, they take a few days really to fully get in your
system. Actually, 1 or 2 days is all you need with the steroid sprays.
But it's really important to get on those before you start having the symptoms. That's
going to be your most effective. The reaction mostly starts in your nose. So if you have that medicine already in there and you've driven out those inflammatory cells, that's going to help a lot. But in cases where you have a sinus infection, you're going to be sensitive to any kind of temperature change or high particulates, whether you're allergic to them or not.
It seems like, Dr. Prince, whenever I get just a little bit of a cold, within a day or two, it turns into a full-blown allergy thing. Is that just because of a reduction in my immunity or what?
Well, you've already got all those factors, those inflammatory factors stirred up, basically. But a lot of people don't realize this, but the medicines don't help the fatigue and the susceptibility to viral infections. And what's happening with the immune system is while your body is trying to fight these allergies, it's slow to respond to the viruses. and so it makes you not only more susceptible, but that you tend to have the viral infection symptoms last longer. And this allergic pathway, interestingly, releases a lot more of those factors that make you feel bad: the fatigue, the body aches, the brain fog. Those factors are released in higher levels and in longer times in people that have moderate to severe allergies.
I'll tell you what, sometimes when you really get hit with an allergy attack, it can feel like you're worse than sick.
Absolutely. We call it presenteeism. People go to work, but they're not really working that hard. They're down a few notches.
Absolutely. We're visiting with Dr. Ty Prince. He's president of the Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology Center here in Knoxville. When we come back, we'll get more. We'll start talking about treatment protocol, allergy shots. What are some of the latest things that we see in the world of allergies? We'll also talk about asthma. So stay with us. This is More Living with Jim Brogan here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI.
Welcome back to News Talk 98.7's Brogan Financial Studios, where Jim Brogan is coming to you live with important news and advice to help you achieve your dream retirement. Get ready to learn and live. Here's your host, Jim Brogan.
Welcome back to More Living with Jim Brogan, where it's all about living the best years of your life your way. This is News Talk 98.7 WOKI. We're with you every Saturday from 9 to 10 a.m. and again from 3 to 4 p.m. You can catch our podcasts at Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or you can go to my website, broganfinancial.com, click on radio. We'll have today's episode on allergies and asthma and immunology and all that stuff. We'll have all that up by Tuesday afternoon. We're visiting with Dr. Ty Prince, good friend of the show. We have him in every year this time of the year. And let's talk about allergy shots. They've been offered for decades as a treatment for severe allergies. How effective are they? How often do you have to have them? Talk to us a little. What's the latest on the medical front?
The latest on allergy shots is they've gotten everything where it's standardized, it's called. So we now have a much better idea what dose and concentration it takes to immunize people. You're going to see about depending on your age, if you're old like I am, you might not get as good a response, but still a good response. You're going to see about a 70-80% response rate overall. Pollen is the easiest thing to immunize against. You'll see an 80 to 90% response rate with that.
And then what are some other treatment protocol if somebody doesn't want to go into the allergy shots?
Well, they have allergy drops. They're modestly effective, but you got to take those every day. You have to put them up under your tongue for about 2 minutes on an empty stomach, and then if you swallow them too soon, they're not as effective. But they do use a lot of those in Europe, and the European allergists tell us that there's only a modest response with that. You have to do them daily for a year, and then you can use them seasonally after that. But insurance does not cover those at all. The insurance covers allergy shots really well, 90 to 100%.
So with the shots, is it still the thing where you have to go in like 3 times a week for a while and then it backs up?
It depends, Jim. We have a lot of different protocols. The old protocol and the one that's most common is twice a week for 3 months, once a week for 9 months, second year every 2 weeks, third year every month. But there's some rush protocols that you can do in 4 to 6 hours one day, or 2 4-hour sessions 2 days in a row. Those are extremely effective, but you see more reactions with those rush buildups.
Yeah, and I think you have to kind of monitor that, right? And it might be
you got to come into the office to get those. There's some risk involved with allergy shots, especially if we build you up faster. But we've we in the office most of about 1 out of 100 people will have a systemic reaction to those shots, and in our offices we use the new epinephrine nasal spray, and that's encouraged some people to stay a little longer if they are worried about getting an epinephrine shot. We just squirt a little Neffy, it's called. It's epinephrine nasal spray. Works very fast, especially if you use it early, and so we've had some better compliance with people waiting their 20 minutes now that we're using we promise them just to spray a little epinephrine spray in their nose, and they're much happier that way.
So how often do you see people resist doing allergy shots? I mean, I understand you're saying you can do the loading thing.
Yes. But
the traditional thing where you have to go in so much for so long. I mean, How much do you see that being a resistance for people?
Well, it's a lot, especially people that work, long hours. We have a lot of airline pilots and airline personnel that stay on the road for 7-8 days at a time, and that twice a week buildup is going to hinder them from doing that kind of therapy. But they typically pick the rush immunotherapies because in 1 or 2 days you can do basically 3 months worth of buildup. And then you go immediately to every 2 weeks. So we have a lot of people that choose that protocol.
It does seem like over the last 20 years, allergy issues have been on the rise.
Yes, they have. And that includes food allergies too, Jim.
Well, and I'm going to get into food allergies for sure. There are various theories behind the rise in allergies, including the theory that excessive emphasis on hygiene and maybe even showering can contribute to the development of sensitivities. Kids don't get out and play outside as much anymore.
That's true.
What's your opinion on the rise? Is it just better identification and treatment protocol, or are we causing increases in our allergies?
We clearly have seen an increase in airborne allergies, but not in third world countries, Jim. And the deal is what we're certain of is that people in third world countries and especially farmers, rural farmers, not city farmers, but rural farmers, their microbiome of their homes is different. And they have a lot more ground-based bacteria, multiple strains of it, and that looks like that plays a role. I think that's the biggest role. There's also a question of how many antibiotics are used early in life, and that might change the gut microbiome and the respiratory microbiome. That might make a difference as well too. But
so to be clear, if we take too many antibiotics early in life, it could weaken us.
In my opinion, that plays a role. I think the biggest. This was discovered in Europe. They noticed that the farmers who very often lived in urban settings, those farms are small in the UK, and there's usually houses right next door to them that aren't farms. And they found that the houses that were the farmers' houses, there were only 2% of their children would get allergies. But right next door, the houses that were just regular houses, central air and heat, etc., the rate was 25 to 27%. So that's where the hygiene hypothesis started. How in the world could you have that big of a difference between a house right next door, homes right next door to a farmer that would have as many allergies as the city dwellers had, and then right next door, the farmer's house, only a 2% chance of their children getting allergies. It's amazing.
So you mentioned hypothesis. Is it still just a hypothesis about the hygiene?
It's multifactorial, Jim. That's the whole deal. You'll see articles come out all the time about an author believing that there's a major cause of it. I think the most incredible study that's been done in the last 20 years, the LEAP trial, learning early about peanut allergy, and they took highly allergic infants and fed half of them peanut butter for 5 years, and the other half 4 years, and then the other half they kept them from peanut butter. There was an 80% decrease in these high-risk kids of peanut allergy if they got peanut butter from age 1 to 5.
Yeah, it seems like when we were kids, Dr. Prince, I don't seem to remember very many people having these severe peanut allergies.
No, you haven't. When I was growing up, I was the peanut allergic kid in my school, and now it's 1 or 2 per classroom, across the board in urban settings. So it's crazy.
That's mind-blowing to me, the kids that would be fed peanut butter from 1 to 5 years old.
An 80% decrease, and it changed everything. In the old days, if a parent asked us about a child that they thought might have been high risk, a lot of those weren't even high-risk kids. We told them to keep cow's milk away for a year, eggs away for 2 years, and peanut butter and peanut products for 3 years. We absolutely gave them the exact opposite of the wrong advice.
That's not what they needed. They needed to be exposed to it
early. So most pediatricians are doing that. I always leave that decision up to the parents and the pediatricians of when to start food and what foods to start. But I found that most of the pediatricians are starting these foods early.
Now, you mentioned antibiotics and having too many when we're young, which leads us to, you talk about the the gut.
Yes.
The importance of probiotics and that whole thing. So how much is that a part of all this?
I tell you what, Jim, it's really impressive when you look at the differences in gut biome between people that have allergies and people that don't have allergies, people that have autoimmunity and don't have autoimmunity. They've looked at it with every disease process just about and found differences in the people that suffer from these conditions and the people that don't suffer the conditions. Their gut biome is different. So
how can we make that healthier?
I think I think diet's huge. Then I think staying away from antibiotics as well as you can. I think that's plays a big role as well too. That's going to really disturb your gut biome.
So what kind of diet helps our gut biome?
I think a plant-based diet, everybody should watch this show on Netflix. It's called You Are What You Eat. And they had 40 sets of identical twins. They put half of them on vegan and the other half omnivore and did every medical study imaginable on them. In 8 weeks, there were big differences in their blood work and in their capacity to exercise. It was amazing. How much difference there was in just 8 weeks. Netflix, You Are What You Eat.
Well, I love my meat, though, Dr. Prince.
I tell you what, these meat substitutes, Jim, I swear to you, I had Beyond sausage links this morning. My favorite thing to do is to grill, and I've turned my grill off pretty much because these substitutes, the cheese and meat substitutes, if you do them right, are pretty good. These Beyond Meats, the link sausages and the sausage patties.
Really?
The secret is to sear them, but you can't tell the difference.
Really?
Yes. And you'll see a big difference. I'm a big meat eater, was a big meat eater. I've lost the taste for it. I can't believe
Have you
it,
really?
but I have, yes. I've lost the taste for it. I have no desire for it whatsoever. And that's what happens when you change your diet around. If you go low salt, low sugar, low fat, and do it strictly for a couple of weeks, you will lose the taste for it. Your taste buds change.
Well, I mean, one of my favorite, you mentioned grilling, one of my favorite hobbies is smoking meat and grilling and all that stuff.
I smoke it for everybody else now. I've got a shoulder on my grill right now.
Do you really?
Cell phone for all the guests that are coming to my stepson's party.
Oh, my goodness. What kind of smoker do you have?
Oh, green eggs, of course. Gotta have a green egg. I got 5 of them.
Do you really?
Yes, but they're sitting idle right now because I've gone vegan.
Oh, my goodness. That is, I was not, when having you in, I was not expecting to learn that you've gone vegan.
My friends can't believe it either. They still think I'm joking, but it's if you get the right foods, you go to Whole Foods and get on the internet, and look at the reviews and things like that. If you have to try at least Credo queso. It's a cashew queso dip, and it's delicious. And it's 35 calories a tablespoon. So, if you don't do what I do and put chips in there, you can have a pretty good snack. And if you
use vegetables or something like that.
I still have to go back to my chips.
We're visiting with Dr. Ty Prince. We're talking about allergies. He's president of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology Center. When we come back, we'll have more with Ty. We're also going to have our dollars and cents segment. How should you be reacting to the short-term news with all of the things that are going on with tariffs and interest rates and the dollar and inflation? Stay with us. This is More Living with Jim Brogan here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI.
Welcome back to News Talk 98.7's Brogan Financial Studios, where Jim Brogan is coming to you live with important news and advice to help you achieve your dream retirement. Get ready to learn and live. Here's your host, Jim Brogan.
Welcome back to More Living here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. I'm Jim Brogan. I'm your host, and we're visiting with Dr. Ty Prince about allergy season. In a minute, we're going to get into asthma. We're also going to talk about artificial intelligence and its impact in the medical community and with allergies specifically. However, before we get back to Dr. Prince, it is time for dollars and cents.
Want to be sure you are getting the most out of your retirement? For all the years of your retirement? That's the primary goal of More Living with Jim Brogan and our Dollars and Cents segment, where we provide you with an important financial tip that will help positively impact the quality of your life in retirement. And now, here's Jim with this week's Dollars and Cents tip.
Understanding time horizon and the impact of short-term events. That's our topic for Dollars and Cents today. When we really look at what matters, what impacts markets in the short term? I got a list here of things I'm looking at. Tariffs, certainly interest rates, big issue right now. Inflation, the U.S. dollar, as it's anticipated, the dollar will decline some. What does consumer sentiment look like? And how does that drive markets in the short term? There are a million other bricks in what we would call the wall of worry when we look at short term and what impacts markets. Now, what really impacts markets in the long term? Corporate earnings. What are companies making? What are they expected to make in the future? What are their growth in earnings? That's ultimately what impacts things in the long term. But in the short term, we got all these other things that can happen that can impact markets. I'm going back to every bear market we've had since 1950. And the average length of the bear market, now remember, a bear market means the stock market goes down more than 20%. How long does it take to go from the peak to the trough, the high to the low, and then come back to where it was? The average since 1950 is 14 years. The longest was, not 14 years, 14 months. The longest was 48 months. So typically we have to be prepared. That's lost investment time where we're not beating inflation. We're not doing anything. And if it seems to you that type of recovery that might take 2 or even 3 years, if that seems like an eternity, then your time horizon for your equity investment is probably too short for owning equities. And that's where it's so important to understand time horizon. When we own equities, stocks, the stock market has historically been the best way to fight inflation over time. But we have tremendous uncertainty in the short term because of short-term trends, news events, all kinds of things. And so we just can't depend on the stock market in the short term. So we have to understand time horizon. If we're living on all of our investments in retirement, as an example, what do we do when we see a market downturn of 20 or 25 or 30%? What are you doing right now with a market correction? If you need income, or you're having to sell off investments. And so it's important to understand that your equity-based investment that is in the stock market, you've got to be a long-term investor, because in the short term, we just have no idea. And that means you need to have some safe money that's protected from stock market risk, to be able to depend on in the short term. I can't tell you how important that is. And when you do that and you build that into your financial plan, then all of a sudden the short-term news that drives markets, as I just went through, it does not impact us nearly as much.
That's our Dollars and Cents segment for this week. You can find this week's Dollars and Cents segment and others by visiting BroganFinancial.com.
We've got a wealth of information there at BroganFinancial.com. You can click on resources. You can also follow our blogs. You can subscribe to our weekly e-newsletter where we put out information of our blogs, our radio podcasts, all those things. So go to BroganFinancial.com, and it's a great way to follow us and learn more about what you can be doing to make informed and prudent decisions that can impact the quality of your life. It is allergy time. It's that time of year, and we're visiting with our good friend, Dr. Ty Prince, allergist and immunologist here in Knoxville. Dr. Prince, let's talk about asthma. The Academy of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology states that approximately half of all asthma in adults is caused by allergies. Talk about asthma and how do allergies trigger asthma?
Well, we call it the allergic march, Jim. The kids and especially, but adults as well, as the allergies get worse, you have a greater chance of developing allergic asthma. The studies, that study you just quoted, that's kind of an average. It's really closer to 60 to 70% of adult asthmatics have allergies, and 80 to 90% of pediatric, especially in an area like this, have allergies as well too.
So Knoxville is always ranked as one of the most challenging places to live for people with asthma. Talk about the difference in asthma in adults and children, and what should an adult do once they're diagnosed with asthma?
I think the biggest thing is the differences in the number of patients, pediatrics, that have allergies. Again, 80-90% of pediatric patients with asthma have allergies.
Is it a different risk as an adolescent as opposed to an adult?
It is. The risk is higher for males when they're real young, and then females when they get in the teenage years. But again, as we call it, the universal airway, as the allergies get worse, then the asthma is more likely to kick in. In adults, they're more likely to have asthma caused by acid reflux is a common cause of that, but also toxic exposures, cigarette smoke, things like that play a bigger role in adults.
People have allergic reactions to different things, certainly our environment. We mentioned food, and I'm going to get into food in just a second. Talk to us about anaphylaxis. It's different from getting a runny nose or a few hives. If you have severe allergies, are we at risk for an anaphylactic reaction?
Absolutely. And, you had the most common things we're going to see, of course, is anaphylaxis to foods.
Peanuts,
also,
nuts, or either.
Nuts are the most dangerous. And a lot of people don't realize this, though, but there's only about 7 deaths per year in the entire United States for peanut allergy. But there have been 2 huge changes in food allergies, and we're notifying our patients as we speak. Number one, they have approved now, 2 months ago, they approved Xolair. It's a monoclonal antibody that will significantly decrease the severity of a food allergy. You just have to get the shot on a regular basis, but it's going to greatly delay the reactions in most people. And I think the biggest change that's occurred with the treatment of anaphylaxis is now going to epinephrine nasal spray. It's called Neffy. It was approved last September. It's basically 1 squirt in the nostril, and instead of the package insert saying you have to go to the hospital after you use epinephrine, this says recommends going if you still feel like it's necessary. So we had a big problem in patients not using their epinephrine because they didn't want to go to the hospital. Well, of course, that's the best way to prevent going to the hospital. But because we had to advise them to go to the hospital after using epinephrine, then a lot of them were delaying the use or not using at all of their injectable epinephrine.
Where do we go from feeling like, sometimes I'll eat something and I'll just feel itchy. Mm-hmm. At what point do we worry about anaphylaxis that we really may need to do something?
Well, if you're struggling to move air back and forth, a lot of patients have anxiety along with their reactions, and they'll say their throat feels a little bit tight. But the real anaphylactic patients they have trouble getting air in and out, so they're pulling it in and pushing it back out again. But especially if those patients are getting lightheaded, it's important when you have a bad reaction that you think might be an anaphylactic reaction to lie down, not to run somewhere to get some help, that kind of stuff, because the blood pressure can drop significantly with a severe reaction. So it's important to lie down, and then if you have somebody else with you that can go for help or run and get your epinephrine, do it. But that's another advantage of this epinephrine nasal spray. It comes in a real small pack. It's about half the size of a pack of cigarettes, bad example. But it's easy to carry, and it has a really long, a wide temperature range from about 8 degrees to 122 degrees. So
wow.
The regular EpiPens was 65 to 95 degree temperature ranges. So the men would put it in their glove compartment or in their wives' purses. That's where the men put it because they don't like to carry them. But the Neffy spray, you can just put it in your pocket, and it's real easy to carry.
So I guess that's become very popular since it was approved.
The people that know about it, yes. We're trying to get the word out to people. We're actually sending letters out and texting and emailing our patients in my practice.
That's very, very interesting. We're visiting with Dr. Ty Prince. We're talking about allergies. Let's talk about food allergies. Of course, now with RFK Jr. In federal government, we're talking more and more about all the additives in the processing of our foods. Do you think in the U.S. especially, has that contributed to a rise in the food allergies in your mind?
I think, in my opinion, again, this withholding foods at an early age might be a major contributor. But, we saw a big rise in indoor allergies when the embargo hit back in the 70s. There was a steep rise in indoor allergies, and that's when people started sealing their houses up. So the levels of indoor allergens went up, and we think more people got allergies that way. But, again, Jim, these are multifactorial issues. There's genetics involved, there's environment involved, and so it's very difficult to determine what the major factors are. And most of the studies you look at are correlation studies. They say, well, more people that eat processed foods have allergies than people that don't eat processed foods. Well, you have to do prospective studies and causation studies, and you need to get as many things of those other factors separated out of that study as you can, and then do it prospectively.
So my oldest daughter, she's been living in New Zealand, and when we go to visit her, we've been, I think, 3 times in the last year and a half or something like that. Well, that's a long way away, but, man, it is beautiful. Thankfully, she's moving home here in a couple of weeks. She's moving back home with her fiancé. Man, there are a lot of additives and preservatives that they don't even allow there. And then there's same thing in Europe that aren't allowed that we allow here. That just...
Well, and again, it's very difficult to compare those populations because there's other factors involved too. They might walk more. They might use more well water and water without the tooth decay in it.
The
fluoride in there, and so you got to look at those factors. But yes, I mean. We don't have allergies in third world countries. There's zero allergies.
I did not know that.
That's correct.
But the first time Mary Caroline went there, she went there for like a couple of weeks with some friends to visit other friends over the New Year, which is summer in New Zealand. And she said she ate all this great rich food and she lost weight.
Yes. The same thing happens when you go to some of the European cities as well, too.
Yeah, sometimes you go to Italy.
Yes.
Eat all this heavy Italian food, and you come home, you're like, how'd I lose a couple of pounds?
Well, they eat. They don't eat as much as we do. And
that's true. They don't eat the volume, do they?
See the volume that they eat, but there's a lot of, in my opinion, some. Confusion and eating the types of fat that we eat, eating meats that have been grass fed instead of grain fed, that kind of thing. And then the carbohydrates play a big role for sure. We eat a lot more carbohydrates than everybody else does,
especially refined carbohydrates.
That's correct.
On the food testing for allergies, how have we come with food? How reliable is food testing for allergies?
It still needs to go a long way, Jim. Generally, what we do, we absolutely focus on the story first. You've got to listen to the story. You've got about a 10 to 20% positive predictive value with these food allergy tests, and a 50 to 70% negative predictive value. That's really low. So we try to combine them if we have to, and it's very important that allergists do a lot of food challenges for 2 reasons. One, to confirm that is the food allergy, because if you develop a food allergy as an adolescent or adult, you're very unlikely to lose that food allergy. But the second reason why we like to do food challenges is to find out if the people are bite-proof. That means that if you have a mild to moderate allergy that's going to cause mild reactions, you don't have to carry EpiPen the rest of your life.
Now, what does that mean, a food challenge?
Well, we bring you in and give it to you very slowly.
Okay, that's what I thought.
With an allergist standing right over you. I've been doing it for 31 years. I've never, ever sent anybody out in an ambulance or anything else, and I've done a lot of food challenges. I encourage people to do them for the reasons I just discussed. But it's an allergist. That's one thing allergists do that a lot of other physicians don't do, and that is work to confirm that these food tests are true positives or true negatives.
We're visiting with Dr. Ty Prince. He now has 15 medical patents, including 3 in the last year. And when we come back, I want to talk about specifically artificial intelligence, the impact in the medical community, and how he's seeing it impact what he does. And we'll talk about his company, AccuClear AI. So stay with us. This is More Living here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI.
Welcome back to News Talk 98.7's Brogan Financial Studios, where Jim Brogan is coming to you live with important news and advice to help you achieve your dream retirement. Get ready to learn and live. Here's your host, Jim Brogan.
Thanks for tuning in to More Living this week right here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. Check out all of our information online at broganfinancial.com. All of our shows are podcast. You can either click on radio on our website or you can go to Apple Podcast or Spotify. Today we're visiting with our good friend Dr. Ty Prince. We're talking about allergies, asthma, immunology, and let's talk about AI and its impact in the medical field. Now, I mentioned there before the break, you were awarded 3 patents just last year alone. Several of those patents have to do with testing multiple allergens at the same time. But talk about the influence of artificial intelligence and talk to us a little bit about your company, AccuClear AI.
Well, it's not just artificial intelligence. It's also augmented reality as well, too. For example, we have cameras that will read the skin test, not just the color of the redness or the measure of the redness, but the measure of the swelling, but also the measure of the temperature underneath the skin. And that lets you know an actual reaction has occurred instead of a irritation. But also with dark-skinned individuals or even Caucasian individuals who have a suntan, it will detect a reaction that's actually occurring and not give you a false positive or a false negative in that situation.
So your application of AI has mainly been in your field? All of it has been in allergies and all that stuff.
There's a company I started with called Innovation Works who later asked to be a partner in my company, not charge me for all the innovations, but these are 2 electrical engineers that have owned several companies, but they are experts in artificial intelligence and augmented reality. The platform that we've invented is called Clarity. It's going to allow every patient to walk into a doctor's office or into a hospital and have every bit of their medical information, their financial information, and their insurance information on a Q reader that's all up to date, including the information that they've put on their Fitbit and or symptoms that they've logged, medications that they've taken, and the doctor's note will already be written, but instead of filling out 5 or 10 pages of paperwork when you go to the doctor's office, you'll just scan in your Q reader, and it will go on to their EMR system, answer every question that they ask in a second, and you're done.
So what's the adoption of that? What kind of adoption have you seen?
We've just gotten the patent on it, so we're developing.
So it's right in the early phases.
We've got it working right now. We just haven't gone to venture capital yet or anything. We want to do it worldwide, of course. When we do it worldwide, you can also take your medical information and have it translated as well too.
Now, on the allergy testing, many of those that have skin allergy tests, it can be less than comfortable to have your back pricked over and over again. Do some of these patents help with that?
Yes, I have a 10-headed multi-tester that just grabs the skin. I got the idea from my wife's hair bret, those hair brets they put in there that have a spring on them. And what it does, it pulls the skin up, and then as you pull it away from the skin, it makes a tiny little break in the skin, but it does it in 10 different places at the same time so that you get the same pressure on each little barb and the same depth of breaking of the skin. You want the break in the skin to be as small as possible just to get enough of that allergen in there to see if a reaction occurs.
Dr. Prince, you're the president of Allergy, Asthma, and Immunology Center. How can people get hold of you?
Allergyimmunology.com.
Asthma.
Allergy Immunology, yes. But just you can look up Dr. Prince as well.
Dr. Ty Prince. Well,
that's the easiest one.
You've been a great friend over the years. It's always good to have you in. One last question. There's obviously a lot of benefits of potentially using AI in the medical field. What about some of the risks?
The risk of getting bad information is called hallucination. And if you turn the internet, the AI loose just on the open internet, it's called open AI. It'll pick up all kinds of strange things and try to present it to you as facts. So you have to. We
need the human intervention.
You've got to have it interact. Same way if somebody tried to get all of their information, their financial information, Jim, you've got to have someone that's walked through it and say, that's, I tell people it's like a 5-year-old genius. They can memorize all the information, but you got to know how to use it.
Absolutely. Well, that's Dr. Ty Prince. Thank you so much for coming on. AsthmaAllergyImmunology.com.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Or you can Google Ty Prince. Today we've discussed allergies and your health, because greater health provides for more living, so you can live the best years of your life your way. Thank you to Jill for helping produce the show. Thank you, Wayne, for engineering the show. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great weekend. Hopefully our Tennessee Vol baseball team can get it going and take these next 2 games against LSU. Have a great weekend. You've been listening to More Living with Jim Brogan, only on News Talk 98.7 WOKI.
The views expressed by Jim Brogan and his guests are not that of Cumulus Media. Any discussion of financial, legal, and tax planning strategies is not intended to be individualized advice and is general in nature. Always consult with your advisor for advice specific to your needs. This program's content does not represent a recommendation of any particular security, strategy, or investment by Jim Brogan or Brogan Financial Incorporated.